I can already see that wonderful things lie ahead.
Safe to say, Demerzel is one of the more interesting and key characters in Foundation. We found out about her past with Cleon in Season 2, and there's still a lot that we don't know about her. Now, we've had our first look at Season 3 with the trailer and the teaser, and it did give us quite a few questions about what exactly is going to happen in the next season. While the main focus of the story does seem to be the second Foundation preparing for the conflict with the Mule, it also seems we're getting some interesting developments when it comes to the Empire, its power, and the women behind it. It looks as if we might finally see the long prophesised fall of Empire, which is something we've been expecting for over 200 years, going all the way back to the first episode of Foundation. But what really interested me about the new trailers and promotional footage that we've had is what exactly is going on with the Cleonic boys in Demerzel. I mentioned in my last trailer breakdown, if you haven't watched it, check it out already, there'll be a link at the end of the video, that it's clear that our outward position within Empire does seem to have changed. She now seems to maybe openly have power. It's kind of hard to tell from the very limited footage that we've seen, but there's definitely a swing in the power relationship between Demerzel, the clones, and I just wonder how that's going to work for the next season. But if we go back a little bit to Season 2, especially the last few episodes, we got a huge arc for Demerzel, with her killing Dusk and Rue, leaving Day to die alone, and then letting Dawn escape with Seraph. And remember, Vault Harry on Terminus also gave her a copy of the Prime Radiant, so she's had over 100 years to study it, try and understand it, and learn to use it. And I wonder what she's been doing for over a century with this knowledge, as her primary goal, as we know, is the preservation of Empire. And Harry clearly spells out that the Empire has to come to an end for his plan to work. So I wonder, what, if anything, can she do to stop this with the knowledge that she might have gained? Now remember, Demerzel is over 10,000 years old, as far as we're aware, and at this point, she's the oldest living creature/machine in the Foundation universe. Apart from maybe Callie, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. We still don't know the exact details of what her life was like before the robot war and her imprisonment, but given the fact that she's thousands of years old and she's got all that life experience, she might have a different take, or at least on psychohistory in Harry's work. Especially compared to, say, a human, especially with our limited lifespans compared to Demerzel. Now, another thing that you have to think about in Harry handing over the Prime Radiant to her at the end of the last season is he plans centuries in advance, and Demerzel is more tuned into that sort of long-term thinking. Because, as I said, as far as we know, she's practically immortal. So say 150 years down the line, to us, might only seem like 2 months from Demerzel's point of view, especially after she spent centuries being kept in the one room in the palace. And when you think about it, this also means that she's very patient. She's spent over 500 years with some version of Cleon as well, and used them to shape the Empire. So it also made me think that her studying psychohistory and trying to work it out or manipulate it in a certain way might pull her attention away from running the whole Galactic Cleonic show. But one thing that's puzzled me since the end of Season 2 is, why did Harry give her all his work?
The future is invented every second.
I'm not bluffing, Seldon.
Invent a better one.
Now, if you don't remember, Day and Demerzel go to Terminus towards the end of the last season, and they go into the vault and have a discussion with Harry. And he clearly seems to know what she is, and that she's the power behind everything at the end of the day. So I highly doubt he'd give someone who might have a totally different point of view and greater intellect than him access to all his work. Remember, we also found out in Season 2 that Vault Harry on Terminus doesn't have all the plan. So maybe he only gave Demerzel some of his work, or at least enough to guide her or force her in a direction that he might need later on down the road. It also means, when you think about it, if Vault Harry on Terminus doesn't have all the info, then giving her the Prime Radiant was always part of the original Harry's plan. And I really want to know what you guys think about this, because when you get into it, you can kind of go round in circles on it. Do you think that this is all part of Harry's larger plan in order to force Demerzel into a certain direction or a certain outcome, or do you think that he genuinely gave it to her hoping that she'd be able to change directions on her own? As I said, our prime directive is the preservation of Empire, but that doesn't necessarily mean them running the galaxy. It might just mean that they might only have to continue to exist because, as I said earlier on, from what we've seen from the trailer, it looks as if we're going to see the fall, or it's already happened in between seasons. So I do think in Season 3 we're going to see a greatly reduced Empire in terms of size and strength, and I wonder how is that going to cause the fall? Because they do clearly say, and we hear it in the last trailer, that Empire and Foundation are going to have to team up to beat the Mule. And I wonder, are they going to go today with that, or are they going to go to Demerzel? Because as far as we know, Gale doesn't know that Demerzel is a robot. Although, as I said in the earlier trailer, we do see them fighting with each other, and you can clearly see that she has been damaged, so Gale is going to discover her true identity, and maybe even her true purpose this season. I also wonder, knowing what she now knows with regards to the Prime Radiant, how is that going to interfere with her directive to keep the Empire going? By choice, is she going to reduce the size of Empire or diminish their power in order to maybe keep them out the way and keep them preserved? It's kind of hard to tell. Either way, hopefully we're going to learn a lot more about her and her motivations in Season 3. Now, if you haven't read the books, you aren't really aware of how important robots are to this story. Put it this way, I'm not going to give you a direct sort of explanation of it. I've already done a video on it. The link's in the description if you want to go and watch it. But if you haven't read the books, any mention of robots in this story is key to where exactly the story is going and how it's going to end up. So all I'll say is, if you're going to rewatch Season 1 or 2 before you go into Season 3, just maybe keep that in mind and see what you pick up on. But one clip that really stood out from the last trailer is Demerzel holding a robot skull. It's only a very brief shot, but she seems really emotionally attached, or at least have an emotional reaction to it, and she very rarely does that, at least unless she's upset. She generally seems to sort of fake or just sort of put on an emotional cover, because we don't really know how it all works with robots and things. They've kind of hinted at it, but they haven't specifically said. So I do wonder who this skull is, because we've been told that robots can switch bodies and transfer their consciousness. So who is this in relation to Demerzel? Was it one of her previous bodies? Was it perhaps someone she was in a relationship with? Are they going to flesh that out? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. The show is roughly sticking to the outline of the books for the most part, and what we've seen in the trailer seems to focus heavily on the Mule, which is only part of the third book, which is confusingly called The Second Foundation. I also wonder, is Demerzel going to try and manipulate the Mule? Is she going to see that he's coming? Is she maybe going to help create that problem as well? Or is she going to try and maybe seek out outliers like Salvor, Talonbond and Gale, someone with that ability who can give her a bit of an edge when it comes to the Mule? Now, as I said, the trailer doesn't really give anything away with regards to Empire other than it's not in a particularly great state. But the other big story arc about the third Foundation book is the first Foundation looking for the second Foundation. And I'm not going to get into that here because I honestly think that's probably going to be the story arc for Season 4 rather than the Season 3. And the reason for that is they're not focusing a lot on Harry or Gale, particularly in the trailer. It does seem that this is going to be a Gale and Demerzel season from the way that trailer is cut, because characters like Harry, Day, Dusk and Dawn aren't really as heavily focused in the last trailer as I would expect. But as always, I want to know what you guys think about what Demerzel has been up to in the last 150 years and where she's going to take this in the season going forward. Also, I want to know what you guys think about Empire and the state of it. Has the fall already happened, or are we going to see it in this season? I'm going to be doing more Foundation theory videos in the run-up to Season 3, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you've made it this far, as always, my name's Al, thanks for watching. Make sure you leave a like, and if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel.